Fast fashion is killing our planet, but resellers and the circular economy is really helping. Let me explain.
Welcome back to episode 3 of the talk show. We are going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to focus on one topic, and that is, again, how fast fashion is destroying the environment and how resellers are a crucial step in solving that problem.
Yeah, and make sure you stay for this whole thing because we're not only going to be talking to resellers about how they can impact this global crisis, but also how everyday people can help. And we also talk to a reseller whose main focus is on sustainable fashion, and we get some insight onto how they run their business sustainably.
To start off, fast fashion is a tremendous problem. And when we say fast fashion, what we mean are the brands that are designed on a very short turnaround in incredible quantities, and they're not really designed for reuse in mind. They're designed for minimal wear before they give out. So think Zara, Boohoo,
H&M, Shein, things like that, where there's so many pieces being made at such a low cost to encourage overconsumption.
So there are a lot of staggering statistics related to this and how damaging fast fashion is to the environment. The first one is centered around water usage and water pollution. Around 20% of all pollution for water pollution globally, 20% of that is related to fast fashion and the production of fabric and making clothes. It's estimated and calculated that around 2,000 gallons of water are needed to make one pair of blue jeans, which is just insane. And when you factor in all of the different styles and all of the different iterations of each brand, and they're making thousands, if not millions of pairs of the same pair of jeans every year, it's billions and billions of gallons of water.
It's not okay. It's not sustainable.
Around 100 billion items are produced every year, and around 87% of those items are going to wind up in either a landfill or incinerated because they are not recycled, they're not entering the circular economy. The companies are overproducing so that there is an oversupply of clothing. The second tremendously hurtful thing for the environment is microplastics. Microplastics are tiny pieces of synthetic fibers or plastic in general that wind up in water and food and things that you use every day. 35% of global microplastic waste comes from fast fashion. So these are from synthetic fibers, and they actually break off tiny little pieces anytime you wash your favorite pair of polyester pants or spandex shorts, etc., and it winds up in the water, and then you're either drinking that or your food is picking that up and you're eating it. And then the last is the energy consumption. There's a lot of energy that is tied to the production and distribution of fast fashion. So a lot of the synthetic materials actually take oil to produce because that's a key component. There's the cost of running the factories. There's the cost of all the toxic heavy metal chemicals. There is the cost to ship it globally. So all of that builds up into a tremendous amount of waste. Approximately 10% of all carbon emissions globally are related to the textile and fast fashion industries. And that is just a staggering amount.
Now, there's plenty that you can do to try and curb this, and we will be going into a ton of that at the end of this video. But the circular economy and resellers are already doing a lot to help out, and I really want to show how, because I don't think people realize how much resellers are helping. And even if you, an individual reseller watching this, thinks that maybe you're not making that much of an impact because you're only a singular person, we're going to prove you wrong.
When we were doing the research, I found out that for every person that is buying secondhand, it's going to be around 500 pounds worth of carbon emissions that you're taking out. Every person that buys secondhand on Poshmark or at the thrift store in general is taking that burden out of the system.
So research suggests that the purchase of 100 secondhand garments will displace the production of 85 new garments. So if you're going out there and the majority of your closet is purchased secondhand, you are stopping new garments from being made, which can stop them from polluting the environment, taking up energy consumption, polluting the water. It's a really win-win situation.
Now, I was actually curious about that and how that relates to reselling and to your closet specifically. So we looked at Poshmark and we looked at the total number of items that you've sold on Poshmark and how those items have replaced new items. You've successfully replaced over 2,200 fast fashion items.
Me alone, just my little business has replaced 2,000 plus items of new inventory that would have come in but didn't because I did a reselling business. That's pretty cool to hear.
Yes, I think the next big crazy number, and it's just the mind-boggling part of individual contribution to saving the planet, is I saw that there's an estimate that for every 600 kilograms, you're saving around 150 trees, and then you're saving, I think it was 3.5 billion liters of water.
That's insane.
Just in that alone. So on your closet...
This is just Poshmark, by the way. We sell on eBay too, so we've made even bigger impact, but this is really cool.
So on Poshmark, I took the total number of items that you've sold, and I said that they are around 12 ounces. So based off my calculations, you've saved yourself 225 trees and 5.25 billion liters of water, which equates to 1.38 billion gallons of water.
Amazing. First of all, I can't even visualize how much 225 trees would be. I mean, it would be more than could fit in my yard. So it's like a mini park. I have like a mini park of trees.
You've saved your own mini park of trees. And you've saved like Niagara Falls worth of water. Like, it's insane. I would be very curious, and I will pop the calculations up on the screen so that you can look at this yourself. I would like people to do this for themselves and comment how many trees that they have saved reselling and how much water they have saved reselling.
Yeah, I really think it's so important for us to show how much impact reselling is really having, because I think a lot of us, I don't know about you, but a lot of us forget how much impact we are actually having on the environment. We tell ourselves it's about sustainability and how much it's so important to us, but we forget how much we're really doing just as individual businesses. So how many trees have you saved? And I wonder, once we count up all the comments, how many trees do we think is going to be just from our comments alone?
Is it more trees than the state of Massachusetts? Is it more trees than the country? How many trees are we talking?
I don't know, but I think it's going to be a lot of trees. So I'm really excited to see this. So please, please, please leave that in the comments. Even if you just give us, 50 trees, that's really cool. And we're so excited to hear about that. I did want to mention one more stat that I don't think has been mentioned. We talked about microplastics before, and reselling will reduce the flow of plastic waste into the ocean by up to 80%. So that's a really cool statistic, and I think it's so important that we pay attention to it. Reselling is really helping, and we actually got the opportunity this week to sit down with a reseller named Stephanie who has sustainability as a passion, and she does this through her reselling business. She not only tells us how sustainability has driven her through this reselling business, but she also gives us a lot of great tips to make sure that you're being environmentally conscious while reselling. Welcome. Could you tell us your name, how long you've been reselling, and what platforms you sell on?
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie. I use she, her pronouns. I have been reselling for almost 8 years. I started reselling in June 2015. My main platform is Poshmark, and then I also resell on eBay, Depop, Mercari, and Citizen.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of platforms.
That's a lot of platforms. Are you full-time or part-time?
I am technically part-time, but I consider reselling my main part-time job in addition to also doing part-time work, doing marketing and fundraising for a couple nonprofits in the Twin Cities.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I love marketing. I did that for a while. Yeah. So I know everybody resells differently. Our niche is kind of pants. Somehow we fell into that. Curious what your niche is.
Cool. Pants. I love that. I also love selling jeans. I would say my niche, though, is vintage, kind of as a whole. I love vintage sweaters and vintage dresses in particular. I think I'm drawn to them mostly because they're just so much more unique, in my opinion, than modern clothing and styles. They always have these intricate details. I recently got this 90s art teacher dress, and it has these carved rose buttons down the front, and I'm like, you just don't find things like that on modern clothing. And so I always get super excited when I find something like that, and vintage items just bring me so much more joy. And so I think I've kind of fallen into that niche because of that. Vintage was my number one seller last year on Poshmark, and probably other platforms. I don't keep good track, but Poshmark has the insights, so I can see that vintage was my number one, and so far this year it is also my number one seller.
That's awesome. Do you have a decade that you prefer, or do you just like any vintage?
I kind of like any vintage. I think 80s and 90s is probably my favorite, though with, the comeback of Y2K styles in the last year or so. Yeah, I know. It's a little cringe, but it does sell. People love it. And some of it isn't so bad. Like a 2000 style dress isn't super cringe. Like those can still be kind of cute. And so I find myself picking up more and more of the Y2K styles too.
So we talked previously on Instagram about what you love about reselling and what makes you passionate about it. And you mentioned sustainability is one of your main reasons for reselling. And as we know, there's some drama in the reselling community about us, I guess, stealing from people who couldn't otherwise afford thrift store items. And I think a lot of us feel that pull to save the environment is a big pull for us. So I'm kind of wondering how you weigh those two controversies and how you kind of justify to yourself that this environmental pull is really important.
Well, it is really important. A quick Google search will just tell you the staggering numbers of how much textile waste there is in this country and across the world. We've all seen the images of the Chilean desert full of clothing waste. And it's wild to me that there would be anyone against saving clothing, especially when resellers aren't new. Like online reselling is fairly new, but vintage shops have been around for a long time. And I can't imagine these people who are coming after online resellers and saying, oh, you're stealing from the poor, you're doing a bad thing, are stepping into a vintage shop and telling the owner that as well. It's funny to me how the internet has created this platform for people to just be mean to each other. But I think, the idea and the mindset around resellers stealing from the poor is just super ignorant, and people just don't understand really what we're doing. They think we're just buying stuff and reselling it for a profit, but that's literally capitalism. That's the society that we live in. Literally every store, including grocery stores, every store does that. They buy it for one price and then sell it for more to the consumer. And so what resellers are doing is literally no different. But I think that for me, at least, what reselling for me has a little bit more of a mission behind it because of the sustainability aspect, because of the environmental impact. Just keeping clothing in the cycle, it's we have so much clothing already in existence, and so going out there and taking the time to find pieces that I think people will want to buy and keep that in the cycle, keep people re-wearing it, reselling it, I think is super important. And it's just unfortunate that there's people out there who are kind of refusing to see that and just want to be mad at resellers for whatever uninformed reasons that they have.
I think it's a place of misunderstanding, and it's the wanting to fit in with your outrage is more apt because they don't understand just how much fast fashion especially is produced over what is being consumed. It's 10 times the amount of clothing that you would ever actually have to buy is being made, and then it just either is sitting there going to the outlets where it's being sold at a discount already or being donated. It's such an excess that it's a fundamental misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Or the lack of understanding of how much us resellers actually take. I don't know about you, but I consider a good thrift day 20 items. I'm not going there and taking an entire rack, which I think there might be a little bit of a misunderstanding there. But it's so important to remember that there's just so much clothing out there and it needs a place to go. We can't keep just throwing it into a landfill. It's killing our environment. It's so important. And I'm so glad that there are more resellers that care about that and not just focused on the money side of things.
Related to that, does a sustainability mindset factor into what you're picking up? Do you like to focus on more sustainable brands, or do you want to focus on fast fashion to try to get some more use out of it? How does that play into your day-to-day?
source all of the above. I'm not thinking solely about like brands or fast fashion. I'm thinking a lot about style and what I think people will want to buy, because that's how we keep it in the system. It's weird to say like in the system, but like in the cycle of like re-wearing. And so I'm not just looking for sustainable brands or fast fashion brands. I'm looking for anything that I think someone will want to buy.
So one thing we talk about in this channel a lot is materials that are going to get your items sold quickly. One that sticks out in my mind because it's summertime is linen. But apparently there is a new material that is becoming a big material in the fashion world. And according to Hypebeast, 60% of all clothes are now composed of fossil fuels. And an alternative to this they're looking at is seaweed. And I don't know how I feel about that.
I very much know how I feel about it. It's not for me, but at the same time, I'm not going to argue because it's going to save the environment.
And I'm curious how you feel about it more specifically.
Well, this is honestly the first time hearing about seaweed as a clothing material. I'm so curious about it. I want to know how it feels. Like, does it feel like linen? Does it feel like silk? Does it feel like cotton? But I am all for all of these innovative ways to create clothing that is more sustainable. I remember not that long ago learning about how many microplastics get into our water system by just washing polyester clothing, and it is frightening. And so if there are all these new ways of creating fabrics and fibers and materials that are going to have less environmental impact, I think that's great. I think that's so exciting. There was another thing that I heard about, I think it was like cactus leather, something like that. And so I think it's so interesting how people are working on creating these new things from like seemingly random materials. Like, who would have thought seaweed could become a material for clothing?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know. So on our channel recently, we had a comment where somebody asked if we could stop using plastic bags.
This is my bad. So I wrap all the packaging, and I am very paranoid about the condition that it's going to be received in when the person opens the package. So I will not entirely trust the free postal shipping, the Tyvek mailers, and I will wrap it in a plastic bag and tape it shut to give it that extra little bit of security. How do you feel about that?
I have never shipped anything in an extra plastic bag, partly because of cost and partly because of waste. I'm like super adverse to waste, and every type of like packing material, anything that could possibly be used as packing material, I reuse. Like, a plastic bag that I get, a item from REI in, I'm using that as like packing material in a box for shoes so that they don't jiggle around in the box or like in something. I'm also reusing like all the plastic shopping bags I get from Target or wherever. I use those as packing material for more fragile items. I'm just all about reusing as much stuff as I can, and like also with the hopes that the person receiving it will continue to reuse it as well. I actually buy poly mailers for like first class USPS packages that have a double adhesive on it, specifically so that it can be reused. And so I don't know if buyers are then reusing these things, but I'm using them in the hopes and with the ability that they can.
I didn't even know they had poly mailers with double adhesive.
That's an interesting thought. I mean, I know we very much reuse all of the boxes that we get from Amazon and wherever, because it's more convenient than ordering them from the post office, and they're already here. And rather than having the time to break them down and put them in the recycling, sending them out is it's a much better use.
I think before we end, I always like to ask people, we're in a time where most people are struggling sales wise, and do you have any advice to people who are struggling right now and just need to push through? Any advice for people that are struggling, I guess?
I don't know. It's so hard. I complain all the time about the roller coaster that is reselling. And sometimes we're way up at the top and sometimes we're way up at the bottom. And sometimes that's happening on a weekly basis, and it can be maddening when sales are just so inconsistent or just so bad for so long. But you really do just have to power through, because none of that ever lasts forever. It feels like it does, because like days can turn into a week, and it's just like, it's so discouraging. But we have to work through that, because the items we list during those slow times will eventually sell. Everything sells eventually. And so we just have to keep looking towards those better times, which is, I can't believe I just said that, because I need to listen to myself next time that I'm in a slow week. I need to just remember that.
And also yell at your phone. We have proven evidence from our comments that shows that yelling at your phone and complaining that Poshmark is terrible will get you some sales.
Yes, complaining to the universe, it always works.
Yes, it's very good therapy too. But that is everything we have. So thank you. We will be posting Stephanie's Instagram and YouTube. I think you should check her out for sure. We'll have that posted for you guys. But thank you very much. So that was awesome.
That was a very informative interview. I think all of our interviews have been great to this point, and each one of them is special in their own way.
Yeah, so if you want to check out Steph, I'm going to pop her channel right here on the screen for you guys. You can check her out. She is brand new at YouTube, but she's not new at Instagram, so she's got lots of great content on both platforms. Make sure you check her out. But I also wanted to tell you that I am putting a link down below for some reusable mailers. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't even think about reusable mailers.
So I had heard about reusable mailers, but I am kind of oblivious to life, honestly. So I hadn't even given it a thought. I thought they would be prohibitively expensive, and they're not. Shocker. They're basically the same price.
Yeah, they're a few dollars more, but honestly, that is totally worth it. I think it is a great idea to try and encourage the people that purchase from us to reuse these mailers, so we are not creating more and more waste. So those are going to be linked down below, and they're super cute, so definitely give them a check out. We mentioned earlier that we were going to give you some tips on how to get involved even if you're not a reseller, and that is what we are about to do.
While we were researching this, we actually uncovered a new law that our home state, Massachusetts, just passed in November of 2022 related to the prohibition on sending textile goods to the landfill. So this is a wonderful start, and we are happy to see that Massachusetts is taking a positive stance, which has not always been the case. So Massachusetts, for those of you who are not aware, history, I know, so much fun, was actually one of the first states in the country to really get started on the fast fashion train with the Industrial Revolution. So we have a lot of mills in places like Lowell and Blackstone and all across Massachusetts. This is where the textile industry really got its start, and it has not really stayed here, but this is the beginning of it all. And because it started here, it is our responsibility to lead the charge into a better future.
So if your state hasn't implemented something like this, we are going to link down below the language for Massachusetts law and the reasons why they have done it. They have some really great infographics and things like that to kind of help illustrate the point of why this is so important. We are going to link down below the language that you can share with a local politician on what you would like to see changed in your state based on what Massachusetts has already done.
So this is an incredibly important step. So one of the most important things you can do is to get involved, whether it is locally, whether it is on a state level or federal level. It can be as simple as signing a petition or asking your politicians for a change. It can be doing a local cleanup in your community, things to take care of the environment. It starts on the individual level.
So now we're going to talk about 5 things that everyone can do right now, like when we stop this video, that's going to help curb the impact fast fashion is having on our environment. And the first one is going to come as no surprise. Stop buying fast fashion.
Yes.
Just stop. Just altogether. Like, I know Shein and even H&M, all of them are great prices. I understand. I am a frugal fanny. I just am. I love a good deal. I get it. But it is hurting our environment, and honestly, it is actually cheaper to go to a thrift store.
Well, you get so much better quality for your money when you go buy something secondhand. You're doing something not only good for the environment by reusing an item that has already been produced. You're speaking with your dollars so that the companies have no incentive to overproduce because they're not selling, and that extra cost of having so much surplus is is going to make them start making fewer items.
Absolutely. And the resale market is really important in this movement. Not just us individual resellers, but also platforms like ThreadUp and other platforms that have a resale market. It's really important because frankly, when you go into a thrift store, it's not super easy for you to find exactly what you're looking for and exactly your size. We get it. We're in the thrift stores all the time. We know how hard it can be to find that perfect pair of jeans that is in the brand you want and the size you want. That's really, really difficult. But the resale market makes it possible for everybody to have access to secondhand clothing at reasonable prices right at the tip of their fingers. All they have to do is type it in on Poshmark or eBay or wherever they're looking, and you can get a secondhand item of clothing in your size, in the brand you want right away.
On a broader level, you don't have to be a reseller to support going secondhand. You don't even have to go to a thrift store. Shopping on Poshmark secondhand, shopping on eBay secondhand, all of those other sites are a tremendous way to protect and help the environment.
Number 2 is reuse and upcycle items. So look, we all have things in our closets that maybe we didn't wear, or maybe we just don't love as much as we want to, or maybe we're just kind of tired of them and we want something different. There are ways that you can reuse and upcycle those items. Now, we're not the best at this. We tried.
We did. There's no evidence of it. There's
None.
no video of
There's
it.
none.
Did you not go looking at our older videos?
We never tried to bleach, tie-dye, anything. That would
No.
never on this channel ever. But if we had, we may have found out how fun that could be and how much it can change an item of clothing that you may not have normally worn and becomes really cool. But we never did that, so we don't
No.
know. We don't know.
There are people that are far better at it than we are that have actually been onto TV. I think on the Drew Barrymore show.
Yes, it was. I'm going to put her name on the screen because I don't fully remember it, but it's like Blue DIY or Blue Denim DIY or something like that. But she is so insanely talented. There are so many tutorials on her YouTube channel and on her Instagram that show exactly how to upcycle items of clothing in all different super creative ways. And I'm sure there are many other creators that do this as well.
I'm sure it's a whole genre on the internet, and you're going to be amazed at all of the creative outlets for people to take an item that has maybe seen better days and turn it into something brand new.
Go through your house when you're spring cleaning, find something you would have gotten rid of and change it into something else. It doesn't have to be an item of clothing. Tag us on Instagram, do whatever you need to do, but tell us what you've upcycled because it's really important to do.
We need ideas, and we are not creative people. The next one is going to be donate over throwing away or discarding. So anytime you have an item that has maybe seen better days and you're not going to wear it anymore, but it still has life left, donate that to either a thrift store or a charity organization so that someone else can save it and repurpose it or get the last little bit of life and use out of it so that it's not going into landfill or being discarded.
Yes, and now I am partial to thrift stores because I'm a reseller, but I do know that there is a lot of people who might not like thrift stores because they're for profit, or they might not like certain thrift stores because of religious affiliations and other things like that. So there are other places you can go as well that are really, really great options. So I know for us, we have a local women's shelter as well as a local homeless shelter that are always, always, always looking for secondhand items. Now, a lot of these places have lists on their websites that will let you know by season what they're looking for, but I'm sure if you give them a call, they'd also tell you there too.
I do know from personal experience in our area specifically, one of the biggest needs is warm jackets during the fall and winter time. It gets very cold in New England. I would recommend probably the bins if you're looking to donate them because it's such a low cost. You can find a lot of jackets at the bins that are being overlooked, and you can take them and know they're going to be getting a good home and someone who's really going to appreciate them.
Yeah, and I did want to highlight one thing that he mentioned, but did it in passing, was the bins. So for resellers, we all know the bins are the Goodwill outlets where there is a bunch of items of clothing that are put in there that did not sell from thrift stores, or sometimes they just put it right in the bins. And they are sold usually by the pound or for just really, really cheap. You can get a lot of great items really cheap. So if you're not a reseller and you don't know what that is what the bins are. And it's also an opportunity for you, if you're looking to try and make a donation to a homeless shelter or other things like that, to go and get these items secondhand so you can still do that donation process. You're keeping those items away from the landfills and you're giving them a home that really, really needs it. So I just think it's so important that everyone, not just resellers, knows about the Goodwill bins.
The next thing that you can do is that there are a lot of companies that have recycle and repair buyback programs so that the item stays out of the landfill. So they will either fix the item or they'll take back in items and reuse some of the materials to save on on that cost.
Yeah, so this is really important for if you have a purse that you actually really, really love, but maybe the strap broke, so now you can no longer carry it around. You can find out if that brand has a recycle or buyback program, so you can either get a credit for another purse from the same company, or maybe get your favorite purse fixed. So make sure you're checking that out before you just head to the mall and go and buy a new item. I think it's really important that we all do that. I'm guilty of not being very good at it. I think that we should all get a little bit better at it. And then finally, we're gonna be those people. Look, I'm sorry, we're gonna be those people, but I think the last thing we want to say is important to do is share this video, or at the minimum, share this topic, share this conversation. We really want to get the word out there that it is important to start making changes to curb the impact of fast fashion on our environment. Resellers are doing their part, and I think it's important people know that, because there is some stigma around reselling, and I get it. It's a very confusing topic, it's a controversial topic, but we're showing you, look, I saved 225 trees. 225.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about that.
I mean, that's shameless self-promotion, but I mean, who's above shameless self-promotion? If you have an opportunity to make yourself look good, if you're not doing that, who are you? I don't understand.
But other than the shameless self-promotion, I really think it's important that we talk to people about what the impact is and why we need to stop buying fast fashion items. So hopefully you can share this video with anybody. It doesn't have to be a reseller, doesn't even have to be somebody that loves fashion, but somebody that might be contributing to the problem. I don't know. If you were shared this video, I'm sorry. But these are great ways that you can help, and please, please, please do this. Even if you want to just put a little post online saying, hey, I went and donated a bag of clothing to try and stop items from going into the landfill, that's a really great start.
That, or just say, I found this great item at a thrift store and I'm giving it a second home. Those type of posts and awareness are really going to help with making the sustainability side of the fashion industry a much more important thing, and put the companies that are responsible for so much pollution on notice.
Yeah, and if you happen to want to share a link to our video while you're talking about it, I mean, I don't think that hurts anybody. I think it might be helpful.
Yeah.
But if you're actually interested in the buyback programs we talked about, and you want to know if your favorite purse company does a recycle or buyback program, we actually put together a list for you in a video not too long ago, and we will put the link on the screen to that video here.